know, I want to improve this, but I don't have any money, and I really can't change anything much because I'm stuck in this e-commerce system, which sucks. So, is there anything you can do to help me? And basically, our view on this is that any web agency, they wouldn't touch this with a 3-foot pole. They would immediately say that what we need here is a redesign. But he didn't have any money for that, and we gave him 6 suggestions for improvements. And the first one was a grouped layout of the product page. And basically, what that means is that, as you can see, the items here on the left, the clothes, obviously has nothing to do with the price and the add to shopping cart button on the right, because from a cognitive point of view, the way that the brain works is that things that you see together, they kind of belong together. So we said, is that it was possible to improve the efficiency of this page, even though the site was damn ugly. But then guess what happened? He did all those changes, our 6 points, and he tested everything, and finally, you know, things were looking good, and he actually got the money to do the redesign, and here's the redesign. So, and since he tests everything, he A/B tested the old site design versus the new one. He ran them side by side. After 2 months, he stopped the test because it was inconclusive. He could not see any difference in conversion rate between the new design and the old design. And I think what's so interesting about this case is that it shows that the end where most companies would have started with the redesign actually was the least important thing for this guy. So let's go to something called, there's a bit of mix of language here because we last minute decided to do everything in English. So there will be some Swedish slides here. I'll speak in English. You can read the text in Swedish. So the 4 questions a visitor will ask when they come to your site. And basically, I'm having 4 symbols to show this: Alice in Wonderland, 2 radio stations, and Bob the Builder. And basically, why we do Alice in Wonderland is that she asks, when she fell down the rabbit hole, she was wondering if she had come to the right place. So the first question a visitor will ask when they come to your site is, have I come to the right place? If I'm looking for light bulbs, do they sell light bulbs? If I'm looking for car spare parts, do they sell car spare parts? And the second question, which has to do with the WIIFM, the radio station, what's in it for me, which is constantly playing in the back of the heads of everyone on this planet, is a question, do they have what I need? Not only do they have light bulbs, but do they actually have this particular light bulb, 5-watt GU10 socket that I need? And the third one, the third question, okay, I am in the right place, they have what I need, and now can I trust them? Is this a place where I can safely use my credit card and put in all my personal details and so on? And the reason why I have Sveriges Radio is that they've been the most trusted brand in Sweden for a number of years. Finally, Bob the Builder. Okay, you got me. Now the only thing I want to do is get out of here. I just want to make sure that I find the way out of the store easily. So that's why I have Bob, you know, big orange button. How do I make it very easy for people to perceive how I close the deals, so to speak? And then now I got some people that are kind of mocking me and my company because they think that the only thing we do is that we just want to. They made this mock-up of our site, conversionista. They think that we are just trying to preach to put big buttons everywhere, and then everything will be cool. But
well, are you trying to put big buttons in everywhere?
Oh, of course we're not putting big buttons everywhere. I just think I like this picture actually because it just shows that they really don't understand what we're talking about. Still in 2012. So basically, I call this the first law of conversion. Conversion happens when your and your visitors' goals meet. So basically, the big button, that can be your goal, but you also need to understand the goals of your visitors. And there's a 2-sided equation here. Usability has to do with making it easy for people to perceive what they want to do and get it. and easily go through those flow and on your pages. But the other component is persuasion, and I think that's actually a part which is not so often remembered on some websites. And you need to work with both those. It's an equation where you need to balance those two goals against each other. There's a Spanish guy that David Bornat, they gave this a really, really good term. He calls it persuadability. It's a combination of persuasion and usability. So the 4 steps, and we're talking, Henrik, that this webinar was going to improve the conversion rate in 4 easy steps. So here are the 4 steps as we see it in e-commerce. You remember that big yellow thing I showed in the beginning, the 2.72% and what to do now? Well, basically the question is kind of wrong. It's not about improving the overall conversion rate in one single step. You need to understand the different conversion steps that happens on an e-commerce site. The first one being to get people to stay on the site, to get them to find products. On many sites, the place where you buy the product, we add it to the cart, is on the product page. So how do you drive more traffic to product pages? When people are on the product page, how do you persuade people to add something to the cart? Because the only way it's going to make it to the checkout is if it went into the cart first. And then finally, checkout. What is your checkout ratio? And now I'm going to look at all these 4 areas in a little bit more detail. Here's an example of what we did with a customer that had this challenge. Basically, when we came to them, they knew that they had a bounce rate of 26.5% in Google Analytics. So that is basically that the people that are not staying on their sites was 26%. The final conversion rate, which you see down to the left, was 0.45%. But that was all they knew. So we helped them to implement the so-called event tracking in Google Analytics on their add to cart button. And now we knew that their add to cart rate was 5.5%. So the number of visitors that came to the site and actually added something to the cart was 5.5%. Out of those, 75% actually went and viewed the cart and started their checkout process. And as you can see, cart checkout process. And you see the red numbers here. Those were the numbers that we identified as their weak points. The cart abandonment rate, and also the fact that only 5% of the visitors actually put something in the cart. And here I'm going to show you here's their checkout funnel. This was so horrible. As you see, the first step, view basket, is 2,000 people. Out of those, only half managed to fill out their address. Out of those, only half managed to choose the payment option. And out of those, only half actually made it through the purchase to the receipt page. So that was a horrible funnel, and they kind of knew that the checkout sucked, but they didn't know how bad it was. And when we show them these numbers, they can actually see that where they needed to start fixing their site.
It's just, Jan, just a question. Do you think this is typical for e-merchants out there that are not entirely sure what the statistics look like? Or is this a unique example?
No, I think that it's everyone has quite a lot of insight on the upper level, basically number of visitors, overall conversion rate, and so on. But when you start breaking it down into different steps and different segments and so on, I think most people don't, they don't look at it like that.
Okay. Are there any questions, Patrick?
We haven't got any questions yet, so if the audience are interested in asking questions to John, just write them down in your question field, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible.
We had, Jan, you were here some months ago, and we had a poll back then that roughly I think 150 answered the poll back then, and 40% didn't do any A/B testing, and 23% didn't do it enough. Only a fraction of those who answered the questions actually do this regularly. Why do you think that is?
I think that everyone got such a huge backlog of things that they just have to fix. It's not a question of coming up with new ideas for testing or fixing. It's a constant. We need to get a mobile site. We need to get a responsive site. We need to add new payment forms. All those. So basically, it never comes around to experimenting, and I think that's really bad. And because some of the experiments that we do, we see tremendous increases in conversion.
We have our first question here. Do you have any tips or free resources for setting up the funnels in Google Analytics?
There's a lot of documentation on just on the Google site. It's pretty self-explanatory how you set up the funnels. You just add the URLs. You find out what the URLs are, and then you enter them into a field in Google Analytics. There's a tutorial, steps on some descriptions on the site.
And otherwise, there's a lot not free advice to get as well, I suppose.
It's pretty basic. I think you can just Google setting up funnels in Google Analytics, and then there are plenty of blog posts and everything. I don't know if so much in Swedish, but in English you'll find tons.
And there we go, Patrik.
So we try to do a poll here again, though. Are you working with A/B testing today? And you have a few options there. Let us see what happens this time.
I think the Danes actually may be A/B testing more than the Swedes. I'm not entirely sure, but I think so.
Do you think so, John?
I have no idea. I think everyone is A/B testing too little. That's what I think.
All right, we close that poll and we share the result with you. And here you see the majority don't do A/B testing, and there's still some work here to do for John on this webinar, since 29% are asking what is A/B testing.
Okay, we'll do that right away then. It's not connected to the slide I'm showing right now, but A/B testing is basically a method where you put a little script on your web page, which allows you to serve two or more versions of the same page to your audience. So it's not a laboratory setting. It's not a user testing with 10 people in a conference room. You're testing on your actual audience that comes to the website. So something you can do, you can change images, text, links, and so on, and serve two different versions of the same page or component to your audience. And basically, you measure the efficiency of those components by seeing at the end which one of the versions has the highest conversion rate, or the highest add cart rate, or whatever it is you're measuring.
We have a comment here on the A/B testing. I see a problem with A/B testing, not enough traffic. How much traffic do you think is required to get a decent A/B test?
You can't really talk about traffic, but basically a kind of a rule of thumb is that you need about 100 conversions on each of the test components. Test variations. So it depends a little bit on what your conversion rate is. It's very difficult to test at the end of the funnel, because if you have a conversion rate which is, say, 2%, then only 2% of the visitors are going to make it through to the final stage, and their action is going to have an impact on the statistics. If you test on let's say you test on higher up in the funnel when people are entering the site, and you test on click-through. So you test who clicks through on this image or this image instead. There's more traffic, there are more clicks, so it's easier to get statistical significance for testing higher up in the funnel.
And I think these questions will be a little bit hard to answer for you, but we'll test you. What is a good conversion rate for e-commerce?
I get the question all the time now. So we are starting a conversion index in order to answer this question. There's a guy in Denmark that does it too, Jacob Kildebogård, I think you say, and the name of his site is webshopindex.dk. So that's something. It's a free tool you can sign up to, where you can get benchmarks for your site. I usually say that if you're below 4%, then you still have work to do. So if I know some benchmarks from U.S. and German sites, and basically most of them are around the average is kind of 3% ish, 2.5%, 3%, and the top quartile is around 4, which basically means that if you're under 4, then you got work to do.
The reason why Patrick just launched this poll also, where we would like to see the response from you listeners. We were discussing an index, as you just mentioned a moment ago. All the Swedes are familiar with the räntekartan, your mortgages, that you could share your interest rates. And if you're interested in creating, helping conversionista creating such an Nordic index, then please let us know. You can see from the results, Patrick, thank you, that 62% would be interested in sharing this information. We haven't thought out all the details, but I could imagine a scenario where you would list what line of business you're in and what conversion you have. And then people within the same line of business as yourself could compare and see if you're below or above 4%, as an example. Okay?
Good. Should we get back to the yellow triangle? Right. Cool. So the 4 steps of e-commerce. The first step, stay on the site, has to do with relevance. It basically, you need to answer the question, can I shop online here? And what do they sell? And then I'm showing this image. Henrik doesn't really like that. I'll take away this in a while. I just think it's funny because as I was preparing this webinar, I was looking at the DIBS website, and this was the start page. I think it's different now. And as I'm doing this, my 6-year-old daughter is sitting next to me, and she's looking at this, and she says, "But Dad, you don't need any shoes with high heels." And she just kind of pointed out that this business-to-business site, which is about payments, was showing a high heel shoe. So now I'm thinking about, is this page relevant for me or not? It took a 6-year-old to see that. The second step, to find products, has to do with search, categorization, and naming. I'm just going to show you. This is this is what it looks like in a typical store. In the physical world, you see these things that hang in the ceiling. After about 1 or 2 years, they are obsolete because people that shop, they don't pay any attention to them, and the people that runs the shop, that owns the shop, they don't pay any attention either, because the way that people browse stores is doing this. They're walking down the aisle and they're trying to kind of get a glance of what's in the actual aisles. And for example, when you look at this page, you can either read at the top what this shelf is about, or by deduction finding out what is below, or you can just look at the different brands and figure out that it must be about cleanings data. And that's what people do. It's a lot cognitively, it's a lot easier for us to do that. So, and here's another example of this. Is the fresh pasta shelf at Coop at Sveavägen in Stockholm. When I looked at one of my client sites, so this is the experience that people have offline, and then when they go online, they will want you to match this experience. And basically, this is the fresh pasta section of a big online store here in Sweden that sells food, and they had only one pasta. They had a lot of fresh pasta. It just wasn't in this particular shelf, this particular aisle. So people that come here, they will think that, oh, they don't have any fresh pasta. I'm going to have to go to another store to find it. And they had it. It just wasn't in the right place. So naming and categorization is very, very important to do that thoroughly to match your customers' expectations. Here's another categorization from Norre, another client of us. They categorize their store by the different concepts or product lines that they have. They're called -29, Röldal, Narvik, Lofoten, Lyngen, etc. And I usually say that this is a great categorization for everyone that knows the Norrena concepts by heart. And all 11 people that do this, they love this. And for the rest of us, it's completely not understandable. Another categorization is this. I'm showing it to you really quickly here, and then I take it away. And now, if you try to think of how could you see how the products were ordered? You had about 2 to 3 seconds to see this, which is about how much time people will spend on a page in order to determine if it's now something for them or not. And the answer is it's alphabetically categorized. Now, I'm not going to do this, but it's actually to find that a list is alphabetically categorized, and then thinking what it is you're looking for and trying to figure out where to find it, and then going to that particular place in the list. It's cognitively pretty difficult. So what people do, they just kind of look around and find it. So alphabetical categorization is not actually that efficient. And if you look in a physical store, how we will look, this is what the physical store will look like, with orange, apelsiner, ajax, ananas, bananer, borstabröd, citron, chorizo. But physical stores don't look like that, because they are machinery for selling stuff, not for organizing things. Here's another test about order. This is very interesting. They made a split test here where the only thing they were doing in this A/B test was moving the products around on the category page. So they changed the position 1, 2, 3, etc. And then they tested, and it was very thoroughly documented with eye tracking and interviews afterwards. And people said that they went down to the product page, they read the information there, and then they based the decision on what's called the features summary on this category page, which are those stars and the price and the name and so on. But when they made a split test, what they found out was that 250 bought the first tenth and 60 bought any other tenth. So basically people were saying that they were reading the information, but they just kind of glanced over the information and bought the first tenth in the list.
Is there a difference between A/B testing and split testing for those not
involved? Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Split testing is another word for A/B testing.
Okay.
And if we go to the general store, I like to find inspiration in the physical world. And here's what you see when you go to the general store. You can easily see a lot of products. You're standing in front of the counter and you're thinking about buying tomatoes and coconut or whatever they have got there, wine, something. Tomatoes, it all looks nice. There's some sledgehammers at the bottom. Now here's a site which had 3 products above the fold on the category page, and we said to them, why don't you decrease the header a little bit, decrease this sandals heading, the red field you see there, and remove some of this blog and customer service here on the right. And if you do that, you can actually get 8 products above the fold on the first page instead of 3. So that's an increase of 270%. So imagine you go to a physical store and you tell the people that has the store that they can increase the number of products they show in the store with 270%. And then they're going to tell you, but that's nice, but we can't afford a new store. You know, we need to buy more space. And then you tell them, no, you don't have to do it. You can show more products in your existing store. You know, that's a wet dream for people in the retail business. But the online people, actually, they don't seem to think like this. I think it's very interesting. And you can also have this discussion about the fold and the importance of the fold, as it's called. But still, statistics show that people spend most of the time above the fold. So it is interesting what you show above the fold.
And just sorry again for interrupting, but when you talk about above the fold and below the fold, just for clarification for those who perhaps are wondering what this is, above and below.
Yeah, basically the fold that's what when you look at when you load the page, what you see on the first screen without scrolling, that's what you call above the fold. If you start scrolling, then you are below the fold. Okay. So here's a category page of 30, which is a very successful and famous Swedish retailer. As you can see, this first view of the page above the fold is basically all occupied with navigation. They are not showing you don't see the price of a single product which you're looking for above the fold. And here's another one, Barnaby's, that lists auctions. They don't have a call to action above the fold on the first page on this brevställ, because there's so much basically the header and all the search fields and all those navigational items take up so much space. Here's another online retailer in Sweden. They managed to show on a category page 8 products above the fold. I don't think this is by chance. I think they worked pretty hard on the layout to accomplish exactly this. Here's another example that we find out in the last webinar we have. This is called belysningsdesign. What's pretty common on category pages is to show like a summary image on the top that gives you an idea of what this is about. So this is about outdoor lighting, utomhusbelysning. And then you can, so they have quite a big header, they have the image, and then they have a filter, which basically means that you see no products above the fold when you enter the category page. And now you can start scrolling, and then you'll see them. So I guess this is fine. But then guess what happens when you hit the number 2 button there? So you want to see the next page. Well, then you're back on the top view again, and again you don't see any products. I don't think this is a really good way of doing this.
Is there a catch to the last site also? I believe that gentleman actually rang you, and he is now getting some extra attention. Is that correct?
Yes, we are. So we decided that we're going to talk to that at the end. We made a conversion review for them, and now we are in the process of starting a conversion project with them and fixing that and some other issues that we also detected when we did a review for them.
Okay, but more at the end of your presentation.
So here's a test, an A/B test that ran in the US on the site called Which Test 1. It basically shows they were testing this page with a filter against this one without the filter. So it's a strict A/B test, and they show that the click-through rate from the page was 27% higher when they did it without the filter. So, but that's just one test. It might not be the same for your business, but it's worth testing. So if we look now at the third step, which has to do with the add to cart, where you influence people to add things to the cart has to do with the disposition of the layout of the product page. So I'm just going to show you a couple of tips on how to do good layouts on the product page. Basically, there's a link there at the bottom, which you'll get. It's a blog post I wrote in Canada, which I call the 3 P's of a perfect product page: picture, price, and button. When we do eye tracking studies, because that's one of the things we do in my company, we see that they actually, what people perceive on the screen, we usually say that you have about the size of a stamp, a regular postage stamp. That's what people look at, and everything that's outside of that little stamp is basically they don't see it. So this this is a mock-up of a page that we work with. What you can see here, there's a very close proximity of the picture, the significant price, and the add to cart button. When those 3 things are close to each other and they are visually discoverable, that makes up a good product page. That's a core of the product page. And some other layouts which I have here, as you can see here, there's a huge distance between the price and the add to cart button. Basically, in web terminology, one is in Alabama and the other one is in Arkhangelsk in Russia. They are so far away from each other that it's really hard for the user to perceive those. And they kind of detected that problem and added the price a second time there at the bottom. Here's a here's a page that this is probably the worst I've ever seen in terms of product page layout. Since we are visually oriented, when you looked at this page the first time when I now showed it to you, probably what you did, you went down and looked at the big image. Because we are image focused, that's the first thing we will look at. And now we will think that the price is probably somewhere around here, because that's usually where prices are. But there's no price there. So then we'll keep going right. Here's a price, but the only problem is that that's not actually the product we're looking at here. That's another product. So we go back up, and guess what? Oh, here's the price. And now we go back to the add to cart button, which is usually down there, but then we remember that, oh, that was not the add to cart into this product, but another product, so we have to go back up and finally find the add to cart product. So, and when we do eye tracking studies, we detect this because we see how the gaze, it's called the gaze plot. You can see how the eye moves back and forward and try to find these things.
So if this company is listening at the moment, they get a special discount.
I know they're working on redoing their site, so this is not rocket science to find. I think it's pretty obvious. for everyone to see that this is not performing really well.
Was there a comment before, Patrick? You were laughing.
No, not regarding to this, but we have a few.
Let me finish the product page.
Absolutely.
This little section first here. So basically, here's another thing that can happen. Here's a product page of Bara Handtag. Now, this is not the best example I've seen of this, but it was the one that I got hold of when preparing this presentation. Let's pretend you're now looking at this. You have your mouse over this nice Imola handle for your nice new kitchen. And now you're going down with the mouse towards the buy button, and guess boom, what happens? You happen to pass this share field here, and now this whole share window deploys and it stops you from going down to the buy button. And there's also kind of useless stuff in this. For example, I really don't think people share kitchen handles on MySpace. I mean, MySpace might be good, but it's not great for kitchen handles. So, and some of I actually seen examples where people deploy this so it actually covers the buy button. So be careful of when people are moving. Think of the paths, the tracks people are doing with their mouse, and don't put things like this in the typical mouse track where people will move their mouse on the page. Okay, that was I'm done with a product page layout. Patrick, did you have any questions?
Yes, we have a few questions here. Do you know of if a one-step checkout normally would improve the conversion rate?
My guess there is yes, if it's done well. There are also one-step checkouts which are not done so well, and they perform not as good as multi-step checkouts, which are done well. But generally, yes.
Another question here. Do the A and B in A/B testing stand for anything?
No, it's just different. You can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing. If you have a lot of traffic, you can do a lot of variations. But it just means that you have one version A and a second version B. You can also talk about 1-2 testing. With that we mean that you are testing one alternative first, and then the week after the second alternative. But that's not A/B testing, because you're not testing on the same traffic, and traffic can be different from 1 week or 1 day or 1 hour to the other. So we call that 1-2 testing. Sometimes you don't have the technical possibility to do A/B testing, and then you have to do it, but it's not as statistically significant as A/B testing.
Thank you. Keep the questions coming. We have a last one before you can continue here. How did you test the filters for UK tool A/B testing or?
Yeah, that was A/B. That was A/B testing. But it's I want to say that it's not a test that we did. There's a site called Which Test Won. You can go there, and every week you will see a new A/B test, and you can guess if the A version won or the B version won. So anyone that has a good A/B test can submit it to whichtestwon.com. And I took that example from there, so it's not a product.
You usually try and guess which one is the winner, and I think you publicize this on your blog or on your Twitter profile, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. You can do that
every time you get it right, or
yeah, when you submit it. When you submit it, you get a chance to tweet, I got it right or I got it wrong.
Okay.
But I must confess that even an expert like me, I have about 50% right, like the average monkey. And that's what most people get. It's really, really hard to understand. But I think the difference with me is that it's like you have scales, and I know what goes in one scale and what goes into the other. So I know that the short the reduced if let's say you have one version with a lot of items and another one which doesn't have so much, so then I know that the low visual impact is going to have a good effect on the conversion rate, but then maybe you take away some trust symbols, and I know that's going to decrease the conversion rate. So I have factor A and I have factor B, so I know that they're both influencing the test, but it can be really hard to know which one is the most important one. That's the really tricky part. I can see how the tests are done and I can understand the mechanics of them, but to see which scale has the highest weight, tips over, it's really difficult.
So you can't, even though you are an expert, you can't guess. You need to test.
Exactly. Right. Shall we go to the checkout? That's we're now a bit over time, I think, here, because we had some mess ups there with Citrix in the beginning. Let's just look at the checkout. I mean, the golden rule of forms is that basically don't ask for any information that you don't need. And here's a really bad form at OKQ8 when you buy a rental car, because you have to fill in your personal number or your driver's license ID before you even look at cars. So before you can see what cars they have, you need to fill this out. So from a privacy point of view, that's stupid, because people will say, you know, I don't want to give you this information just to see what cars you have. But it's also stupid from another point of view, which is what happened on Statoil, is that they couldn't get in contact with the national database for driver's licenses. So it says, we have difficulties in getting contact with our register right now. Please try again later. And what I'm saying here is that this is 2012, and we're on the internet, and you're now telling me to come back later. There's absolutely no way I'm going to do that. I want to finish this now. And when they do advertisements for this service out in the subway or in the newspaper, they tell you, call this toll-free number 0200 blah blah blah. So basically, what they should do here, they should say, we screwed up. We are going to kick the asses of the people in IT, and call this number immediately, and you will get a 20% discount because we screwed up here. Next one. Don't ask for anything which is unnecessary. I thought I had seen it all, but then I registered for a biking competition at Cykelteket, and they asked me how long I was. And of course, I filled in 285 centimeters because I thought it would be very funny to see what they would send to a guy that's 285. But I haven't really seen that they're segmenting in any sense. I haven't got any XXXL bikes yet. Don't do that. That's just stupid. There's a bit of a mess now. I see with the layouts here. Basically, I call this a hierarchy conversion. I borrowed it from Brian Eisenberg. It basically starts at the bottom with accessible and functional. So a site needs to begin with. It needs to work. Like you can go to it and you can move through pages, and then it needs to be usable. You climb up this pyramid, and then after usable, it has to be intuitive, and then finally persuasive. So you have persuasion at the top here. And the point Brian is trying to make here is that fix the stuff at the bottom first before you start moving up to the top. I think there's some sites that have a bit of a problem with this. And here's a site where I was buying some things here, and I started to register with this personnummer, and then it says it's already in our system. Please log in with your email address. And I have about, I don't know you guys, I have like 800 email addresses. So I started to fill one of them out here, and it was the wrong one, and I tried a new one, and so on. And then I did what most web users do. I just kind of put things in, and I fumble, I do stupid stuff. And then eventually I managed to fill in an email address. I forgot to put in any password, and I just hit the login button. And then what happened was this black field, this mandatory field, popped up above, on top of the email address. So now, and I couldn't remove it. So now I cannot see what email address it is that I don't know my password for. And then it says, did you forget your password? So I hit that as a link, but the link didn't work. So it didn't do anything. And then there was this email address here to the left called feedback at this site. And then I was trying to email them, and they didn't get back to me. And the thing here is that motivation and persuasion was not the problem here, because I was buying underwear for my wife, and I was highly motivated. So there was basically, I would do anything to get through this checkout, but I couldn't physically do it. And then what happened? Within 24 hours, they sent me a remarketing email saying, hey, John, we saw that you came to the store, and what if we throw in some discounted shipping? You can get this stuff easily. So they were basically trying to throw some more persuasion and motivation on the fire here. But the problem was that I wasn't even at the fire. There was no way I could get through this. And what I mean with this is some of these technical usability, basic things in the checkout, in the forms, etc., they just need to work. But unfortunately, a lot of marketing-driven companies, They just take stuff like this for granted, and let's just throw some more marketing money on it, and then we'll be fine. Don't do that. I usually say, how much does it cost to fix the forms? When I was working at Betsson, I was working at a gambling company, and we had a sign-up page which was horrible. And I told the guy to, why don't you fix this? But he never did. And then one morning, I took a fresh 500 kroner note, and I put it in the keyboard of his computer, and I said, you now have one chance to fill out the form. You can take as long as you want to, but when you hit the submit button, if you get a single validation error, I take the 500 kroner back. And if you go through without any error, it's yours. And he was thinking about it for like 20 minutes and hit the button, and he didn't manage to do it. So, and he had probably done it like 50 times, 100 times, but he couldn't do it. So what I'm trying to say with this is one easy way, which I think people don't spend enough time on their own forms, just filling them out, just trying. You don't need to go to a consultancy and require, users for X thousand kroner. Just, show it to your mom or the guy sitting next to you, and just have them fill out the form. And then I'm just gonna. This is my final. Now I'm being kind of dissing other sites here. So here's a. Ja, men gör det så bra själv då på svenska. Do it better if you can yourself. So here's a page that we did with Mathem. Here's a category page. This was the old site. You can talk about all things which are not great on this site. For example, typically the headline is says en färdig matkasse förenklar vardagen. I just say that this is kind of copywriting that says it's better to be, rich and beautiful than ugly and poor. It's true, but it's not really. It doesn't really grab you. There's a lot of text which is hard to read. There's navigation which is actually not really necessary on this page. And here's what we did for this client. The person who buys this grocery bag is a woman who's got a hard time of making it on time and preparing dinner for her kids. So we wanted to physically put her in the kitchen together with a family where she was just succeeding on getting this food done like 5-2 and not 5 past, because those 10 minutes can be make or break for this mother. And then we wanted to show the actual product, which is these matkasse, and we wanted to show products of food because we react very strongly to products, to pictures of food, just for our natural instinct to eat and survive. Then we also said we wanted to have a picture of the family, but you can't see any faces of the family because we have such a strong attention to faces, so that when you show too many faces and eyes in an image, then our eye will move around and try to figure out the social situation of that image. And this is a mock-up. I show you the real picture when it came out like later. This is just some stock photo stuff I threw together. And then, people hate forms, but these kind of one field forms where you just enter your post number or zip code or telephone number or shoe size, whatever it is, that actually works like magnets for people. They want to figure out what happens when they fill it in. So we put this form here. And then if you input your postal number, it says, yes, we will deliver to you in Sollentuna, and here's the next delivery date. And here's what the actual page came out like. We did about a 2-page specification for the photographer on how to shoot the image. And as you can see, it has all the elements that was in the first image. It has the headline, it has the mother, it has the food, it has a grocery bag, it has the clock, which is on 5-2 and not 5 past. You can see the kids, but you can't see their faces. And you have this equation that says why it's great to buy this grocery bag. And then you input the post number, and you get a positive confirmation that we will deliver to you. And then, of course, we split tested this in Google Website Optimizer, which is now called Google Experiments. And we had about a 24% increase in sales. And this was not tested on click-throughs or anything, but actual sales. So basically, the 4 steps of e-commerce conversion has to do with getting people to stay on your site. And when they have decided to stay, drive them to the page where they can add something to the cart. Make it efficient to find what is actually relevant for them on the site. And once they're on that page, make it persuasive for them to add something to the cart. And when they have things in the cart, make it easy for them to go through the checkout without having extra obstacles like stupid email reminders, addresses, things like that. And that was, as I see it, everything. And I got this. I don't know if you want to proceed. Should I proceed with this?
We can see. We can.
Take some questions.
Yes,
yes.
Perhaps before we finish this part off, just let Patrick share with us if there's any questions, or what questions should we have, Patrick?
We have a few questions left. If the audience would like to have some questions answered, please send them in the question field. Here's a question for you, John. Which software did you use for the test of the food site?
That was Google Website Optimizer, but Google Website Optimizer was discontinued as Google wanted to integrate the experiments into Google Analytics, and it's now called Google Experiments. Unfortunately, when they did this, they scaled it down so much that it actually lost a lot of value. But now they are on the path of kind of rebuilding it again. But it's called now Google Experiments. You'll find it inside Google Analytics.
What do you think of Visual Website Optimizer?
That's what we use the most. I think this week we are running, I think, 5 different Google Website Optimizer experiments. So I think it's a really good tool. We have good connections to the people in Visual Web, in Wingify, as the company is called.
All right, we don't have any more questions at the moment, so let's go to the offer.
Yes, as you can see here in front of you, Patrick, you can switch in a moment to me. But as you can see here on John's side, we've put together with Conversionista and Johnny Ekman the opportunity for you out there to have an own review. It should be dead easy to order. I'm sure you can either call or you can. Well, you want us to call, right?
Actually, we can. There's a, as you can see further down, there's a conversionista.se Convertera Mera where you can actually.
Okay, so there's a link or there's a phone number. So
and you email us or just get in contact with us. But basically, and Henrik squeezed my arm here a little bit. So we have 2 levels of doing this, and the more expensive one, we include an analysis of the Google Analytics setup. So basically, the special offer for the webinar attendees today is to get this review, including Google Analytics, but for the price of the kind of basic review.
Excellent.
And what we do with this, and what we did for a couple of people that attended the last webinar, it's basically going to give you a report, 10 to 15 pages, and we try to make it really hands-on and telling you, basically, this is what you need to fix, this is the prioritization, start with this, and then do that, and so on. So you get a list, and you also get some examples of how it worked for other people.
Excellent. So there you have it. Just for your information, this webinar was recorded, and if you want to see it again, it's going to be on our blog, on our website, fairly soon after we finish off. And for those that did not attend, they will be receiving an email as well. So you can freely share this with any of your colleagues that you have. We also do have a channel on YouTube where we normally post anything we think is of interest for e-merchants or partners out there. This was pretty much it. We are almost on time. And one thing which you shouldn't miss is the fact that we have launched in the week that went the DIBS e-commerce survey, which is available for download on our DIBS webpage, and you can see how we prefer to pay in 9 different countries, and obviously there's a lot more information in the e-commerce survey. So I recommend you go in and get your own copy. It's free of charge, and the worst that could happen is that you'll get a bit smarter. Patrick, is there anything we should say before we finish off?
Absolutely. I would like to take 30 seconds to make a few polls, 2 polls. First, we would really appreciate if you can rate this webinar so we know how we did, and what we will of course show you this as soon as you are ready. We have 30% have voted. Could we have some more, please? All right. Here we close it, and he will see the result. 88% thought it was very good and informative. Thank you for that. And we also apologize for the technical difficulties in the start of the webinar. And finally, if anyone would like us to contact you, please answer this question here, and we will get back to you. Thank you for following us on this webinar, and keep a good lookout on our webpage for more webinars in the future.
And thank you very much, Jon, the second time you're here, so we really appreciate it. And 88% thought you did a great job, and everybody now knows what A/B testing is.
Of course, and it's the same as split testing.
Good. Thank you very much, Patrick, and Jon Ekman as well.